Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me for another week. So this podcast explores near-death experiences. Why do I explore those experiences? I guess I am very curious to know if life continues on from physical realm into another dimension. And although this topic is not proof that it does occur, most of these experiences, well, all of these experiences point to the fact that life does continue in some form when we no longer are in this body. Now, these people die, their heart stops, they stop breathing, a lot of them, hence the term near-death experience, but obviously they come back. So is there some difference between dying permanently and temporarily? It's impossible to say until we all eventually reach that point. So although this topic is not evidence of life after death, I strongly argue that this is the case, that consciousness, what we call consciousness, does crossover, isn't affected by what dimension it's in terms of its existence. It doesn't matter whether it's in a human body or if it's in some other realm. It seems to be there all the time, and just because a physical body dies doesn't mean that the essence of who you are doesn't continue on in some form. So what is that form? What is consciousness, and what does it look like, and what's it like being just in consciousness form? I guess that is the topic of the podcasts I do, because it's an exploration of what the essence of what you are is like, what it experiences when it's no longer in its physical body, and it's a really interesting topic, and I'm amazed that we don't know more about it yet as humans and haven't researched it. I guess it's because we struggle to measure something or explain something or quantify something that we can't see, and scientists struggle to explain or measure or interpret that sort of information when it's such a personal thing that can't be measured, or it's just it's that old thing really of science versus God, and can the two meet, and can we actually explain what God is, or consciousness is, or what a soul is? Is it possible to have a textbook definition of that? And this exploration, this research I'm doing into this topic makes me think it is very difficult, because it can't be seen, and it's such a personal thing. So there's so many different variations on what consciousness is depending on the person, and it's like there's no two that are the same, which further complicates labeling it or measuring it. So anyway, I will get into today's experience. I'll just wait for that plane to fly past. This one's from a guy called Paul, and it is on the endearth.org website. For whatever reason, I've had some spiritual experiences, aka mysticism, and I want to share them with you. Chief among these experiences was a near-death experience. This is when you die, go to the other side, and then come back. I was raised strict Lutheran for what it's worth. This NDE happened early in my life when I got out of high school. It was an accidental poisoning with no lasting side effects. However, years later, I realized that I'd never fully recovered from this experience, in part because once I tasted something great, this earth realm seemed pretty pathetic and troublesome, like I didn't fit in anymore. I sensed a great deal of pressure, like I was supposed to accomplish some monumental task, having experienced what I did. As it turns out, millions of people have had this happen to them. I recently had a phone conversation with a lady who also had an NDE. She heads a local support group for people who have had similar experiences. She is also a psychologist. After I described my experience to her, she explained to me that my type of near-death experience is the hardest to recover from due to the visceral and powerful nature of the experience. She called the process of adjusting back into this life after having a near-death experience as reintegration. She described my experience as level 4, the highest level, and said it was very rare amongst near-death experience cases. Anyway, I will describe it below. The first thing I am aware of is that suddenly I am being automatically transported to somewhere extremely fast, like at the speed of light. It was a strange sensation because I've never travelled this way before. There was no vehicle, no recollection of a decision to travel, but it was very deliberate. It was taking me wherever it was taking me, and I just stayed still and watched. There was no sense of me having a body, just my vision. But I did feel this movement, like G-forces beneath my field of vision or within my being. It was a little bit like taking off in a jet from standstill. My body knew it was moving, and the inside of me was being pushed or pulled. The force was never enough to be unsettling. It wasn't just in my mind, it was literal travel to another destination. It was in darkness, like the black of night, with faint lights or textures zooming by, or rather, I was zooming by them. I remember at one point going into an arc motion, like around a bend. It seemed like a very long, gradual arc. The arc-shaped travel was the most memorable of this travel. It was the most dramatic, and it's like going around a corner, hard, and being pushed outwards, either around a left-shaped arc or right. It was not all straight travel. It was sort of like a tube due to the speed, like tunnel vision. There is no way to describe how incredibly fast it was, but it was very fluid and smooth, not all jarring, and no vibrations, only speed and at least one arc. It was a ride, and I wasn't in control of anything. I was wondering what was happening. I knew it was happening, but nothing like this had ever happened to me before. The feeling that I was being taken somewhere by something, I was very surprised. It didn't seem to last long, but due to the speed, it seemed to take forever, as though I was aware of what a great distance I was covering. I went a great distance. It was as if I strapped into a smooth but fast amusement park ride in a dark tunnel, and all I could do is watch as things unfolded. I had no clue as to what was going on because I was completely new. All of a sudden, I'm being taken somewhere very fast and very far away. Where and how I am going, I wondered. Then it all slowed down to a calm float. The fast ride ended. The tunnel vision was gone. No more distance to cover. I am now, in inverted commas, here. Now it is stillness and openness, like I was now in the vast outer space where I saw a great light, and I had an incredible sense of awareness, peace, and power. I came out of the tunnel and things were all opened up to a starry sky and outer space. My spirit, like the part of me within my chest that can feel joy, excitement, or heartbreak, opened up too. It seemed to rapidly grow incredibly massive in size, without any constraint, like a helium balloon that quickly expands indefinitely but never bursts. I was not conscious of having a body, or arms, or legs. I just felt like this power deep within me, just below my field of vision, like where my chest would be. But I sensed that this power expanded way out beyond a normal-sized body. I was not walking, just floating, but it was very still. I saw beings standing there within a great white cloud backed by a white light. It was like they were standing on and within this beautiful white cloud that had been surrounded by light. The cloud rose up among them, but it was more dense around their feet. It was like all awash in a beautiful and pure energy. They were in 2 rows in front of me, forming a V shape, perhaps 7 on the left and 3 on the right. They were turned slightly towards me. They formed an aisle for me to go in between, like at a wedding, but the aisle narrowed as it got closer to this big ball of light that it was leading me to. The aisle was short and very wide, or spread apart at its mouth. It was like a funnel shape, like they were funneling me into this light and greeting me. I was being drawn into that aisle towards the bright sphere of light that was to their far side. The sphere of light was intense, maybe 4 times the height of the beings. It was beaming out in every which way. It was a bit hazy, but they had white gowns from their neck down to their feet, pure white full-length gowns, and they were glistening gold accents around them. They had a human-type form and their heads were uncovered. I did not make out their faces. It was all like a glowing cloud, but at the same time there were elements of sharp and acute sights, such as the shimmering of their gold jewelry. The gowns reached up just beneath their heads, close around their necks like an old-fashioned nightgown style. The gowns were not snug around them, but more flowing straight down beyond their feet. The gowns were not tapered, but were more draped, with perhaps gentle lengthwise waves. They were more like a traditional gown. They were very white, like shimmering pearl, sort of like a satin effect, with maybe gentle folds. The same white material covered their arms as well, down to their wrists. The arms were more tapered towards the ends of the wrists, but not tight, and completely elegant. It was a thing of pure beauty. This was like something I might see in an old-fashioned music box that helped an elegant princess twirling that would cause a little girl to wonder as she listened to the music while watching the princess move. These beings looked like and moved like women. They had a distinct feminine quality, a gracefulness, a gentleness, a fluidness. These were beautiful forms. They were all similar size and height, average to thin build, with the same flowing gowns with light-coloured heads. I don't know if it was skin or hair. It was rather hazy, but everything was very graceful. I didn't even know who or what they were, but they were so wonderful to me, just wonderful. It was a tremendous spectacle of beauty and love. I have never felt so welcome in all my life, and will never again, and will never again until I go back. In retrospect, this setting seemed to be organized, like it was an official greeting of me. How could this be, I wondered? It didn't take me long to get there, but it was like they were already ready for me. This was all extremely vivid and sharp, hyper-acute in my senses. All of the sounds, sights, and feelings, everything was hyper-intensified. Beyond the beings was the great white light, which was very bright but didn't hurt my eyes. I was completely filled with peace, and like a spiritual chorus of joy, much deeper and broader than euphoria. My inner being was an enormous producer of power from deep within me. From the deepest heart of my inner being was an immeasurable love and purity. I became a very source generator of gushing purity and truth. This is the only power that is truth. Within me was an incredible replenishing of the power of goodness, expanding and flowing out. Like if suddenly I'd flipped on a million spotlights pointing out in every direction from inside me, each having a trillion tons of force pushing the purity of love and truth from every which way, as I slowly floated forward, ever increasing in goodness. This power had a sense of warm, liquid, bright, pure light, calm and radiant, but extremely immense and intense energy. It grew to be as large as the sky and ever bounding from within me. My inside grew outward. It was the only true power that I had ever felt. Everything else is a lie. It was like my inside was generating an incredible amount of love, peace, and light, and it was gushing and pushing out in all directions, like the sun glowing and burning outward from within me, as if more than all of the electricity that has ever been flowing out from deep within you. But it is a calm power, beaming out linearly in every direction. Within me was a never-quenching and ever-growing sphere of pure love. It is truly unbound. It was so powerful. There was so much power, like a trillion Hoover dams generating pure love and beaming it out from within me. The power that I was granted in the next life is unthinkable in human form. Finally, for once in my life, I was plugged in. I belonged. I was hooked in. It was right. This is where I'm meant to be. It was perfect. A chorus of beautiful female voices rejoiced and sang my name gradually, with a wonderful harmony and melody repeating over and over. The most beautiful sound I've ever heard. Many different tones and levels all at once. To think that they were singing my name. This vocal music has so many different layers and permeated everything. I was completely overwhelmed in my mind. I didn't at all understand what was happening. My mind had not yet caught up to what was happening, but it was so nice. I did not realize they were greeting me. I did not realize all this attention was for me, especially not for me only. Within myself, I looked around confused, like maybe there was some other thing they were focusing on. It didn't sink in. I felt it was just something that was happening, that I came upon as an observer, like I entered into the middle of something that was going on. It was all so foreign. This situation I entered upon in the next life was for me. It was given to me. It is the greatest gift I have ever received. I did not realize that I was the guest of honor, or that this spectacle was about me. I looked back and saw the earth suspended in the black outer space surrounded by faint stars, exactly as I've seen from space imagery. Only when I saw the world from there, it didn't seem that grand at all. It seemed flat of power and pointless. The surface of the dry land of the earth seemed dim-witted, bland of life, and monotonous. It was a meaningless and very subtle churn. It was about the size of a ping pong ball, maybe a little larger, and it was down low. It seemed very far away and void of purpose, a voice, or a soul. The sense was that if I went back to earth with this knowledge, that I would easily radically change the earth. Everyone would be in awe of this story that I would tell them of visiting the afterlife. It's real. I saw it. I will share it with people. It will change everything. But no, as I came back, it just keeps on turning. I never used to tell anyone about it, anyhow. The world seemed like a very easy thing to conquer and rule over from the perspective of heaven, not in an evil way, but in a leadership way. I don't think this world is structured to know or care what the truth is. In fact, I believe that the truth is counted at every turn and intentionally kept hidden by our base level controllers and manipulators, who are the stewards of darkness. They wouldn't want us to have the knowledge that we hold claim to absolute freedom, which is accompanied by an enormous power and true liberty. They would rather we look down on ourselves as faulty and defective and in need of help and management by the enlightened ones. And maybe we are all too willing to believe this. This world is all about slavery and bondage, which begins in the spiritual realm, where unaware humans aren't as savvy as our adversaries. In truth, as long as we strive to be kind, then we are perfectly imperfect, without the need of correction and management from our evil slave masters with their perfecting of humans' illumination scheme. We are created imperfect, and striving for perfection is natural and torture. So you can appreciate your imperfection as a thing of beauty and elegance, perfected already by God. It was like I was on a slow-moving conveyor belt and gradually moving closer in through the beings dressed in white gowns. I was seeing this motif of the cloud, the beings, and the intense white light behind it, framed in darkness of outer space from the initial distance of about 50 feet. Initially, I was outside of this spectacle, seeing it from within the vast darkness of outer space. But soon I was drawn into this sight and among these beings. In between them and in the middle of this funnel, surrounded by them on the left and the right. Now I was submerged right in the middle of these beings in the cloud. They were very close to me, like they were closed in on me some, an approximate arm's length away or closer. I was just looking around at them in a daze of wonderment. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever been among. They were so gracious to me. They were cherishing me. They moved very slowly, postured gracefully. They were in unison, very elegant. This whole moment was brimming with pure white light and the white cloud. I was immersed in this beauty. This is where the gold jewelry was most prominent. I don't know if they were gold instruments or what. I would occasionally see a flash or glare of gold, very sharp, but it didn't hurt my eyes. I was in this white cloud among these beings slowly floating forward between them, where they came close to me. They were viewing me in a greeting sense and being among me, with me. They seemed to have a knowledge of what I was, slowly floating ever closer to the bright light. I was automatically drawn into this great light. The sense of complete transformation and powerful goodness was ever increasing. I was being saturated with love and transforming into a new being. I got right up against that bright light to the point that all I could see is the bright light itself. Everything was going white, as though I was slowly going past a threshold. I was beginning to enter into this light. It seemed as though I was beginning to morph into something else, something of complete grandeur, something extraordinary. Like the power was becoming so great that even in this new state, that something about me was about to change dramatically. In that moment, I realized exactly what was happening. It was like a little short spiritual birth canal I was entering. I could feel a dramatic and sharp change beginning to take place. If I would have remained transitioning one moment longer, I believe that I never would have come back. It was so good, so complete, so right. I believe there was no way I could have chosen to come back if I got any further, and knew that in that instant, it was like I was being born. I officially began to transform into something else, which was the most wonderful and beautiful sensation. Purity, warmth, beauty, love, power, peace, and knowing to the infinite degree. I was about to change into a new being. Words could never describe this pure and beautiful power that beamed and flowed and grew. It was as though I was becoming one with that light, entering into the light itself. I finally realized that I was entering into what I knew of as heaven, or a heaven-like state. Initially, I had confusion as to what was happening because it was so new, so fast, so different, and so vivid. The beings I saw seemed very accustomed to this. They were so natural. I assumed that the great light was what we know of as God. I also I was being greeted into the pack, brought into my family, and born onto God. They loved me. The amount of appreciation for me was astonishing. I realized what was happening, and I guess you could say that I willed myself back to Earth. I reacted and turned away immediately, like a turning and diving motion from within me. As soon as I sensed I was at the point of no return, I did not want to die from Earth in that moment. It did not seem like the right time. My life seemed unfinished. My sudden death seemed unexpected and premature. It seemed not right. I was surprised that I was dead from Earth. It took me by surprise when I finally realized that my Earth life had passed. Just like that, I'm here. I was dead and gone from what I knew. In your own life, you wonder when you're going to die. And I was up there thinking, okay, so this is when I'm going to die. I'm dead right now. It's already happened. The mystery is over. Wow, that was quick and unexpected. A truly strange perspective in retrospect. These were rapid realizations that were occurring in my mind. Something big was transpiring, and I was sorting it all out moment by moment as it took place. I felt like I needed to act quickly and rashly. I made a conscious decision and effort to reject this at this time. A strange decision indeed, but it seemed like the thing to do. This is when I woke up and someone from Earth was there with me, calling my name into my ear. This was the most real, vivid, and powerful thing that has ever happened to me by far. I am not afraid to die, and I don't mourn for people who are dead. There is no way I can convey the amount of power that was within me or how good it felt. It is like I am a deaf mute and have some specific content that I desperately want someone else to grasp, but they never can. I surmise from this experience that I am extremely important and a valuable being, and I don't believe that I'm any different from anyone else. And that's the end of Paul's experience. For me, there's parts of that experience I quite enjoyed. It was a little bit confusing at parts, didn't flow as nicely and made it a little bit hard to understand. But yeah, definitely enjoyed it towards the end where he started talking about his transition into the light and what that was like. I like the detail he went into and gave me personally a little bit of a different perspective on what that is actually like, because he went into quite a bit of detail there as to what that transition felt like, whereas others will just say they merged into this oneness. He says he didn't quite get to that point, but he felt like he was almost and decided to come back. But at the start of the experience, he kind of goes into a lot of detail as to what these beings looked like, what they were wearing. And for me personally, I don't get a lot out of someone explaining the clothing which someone is wearing during one of these experiences. I don't know, that's just me and it's not about me. I guess if you like that sort of thing, that's fine. But for me, it just went into a little bit too much detail as to what these beings actually look like. Whereas, from my point of view, it's a little bit irrelevant in a way. I think when we all cross over and have these experiences, it's all going to be unique, and the beings we encounter are going to come in all different forms and what they look like and what they're wearing, it to me is a little bit irrelevant because they're going to appear to us in forms that we can relate to, and every individual is going to have a different taste, so to speak. So what one person gets in one of these experiences in terms of the form these beings come in is going to be different to the next, and what they look like, just to me personally, isn't overly important. But yeah, I like the detail Paul went into, and yeah, let's go through this one again. So he starts off by not really going into much detail at all in terms into explaining how this experience actually came about, which is fine. Sometimes you can read experiences from this site and 90% of it will be what's happening in this physical realm and how they died and what happened when they came back from their death, and it'll only put a few words in as to what actually happened when they had crossed over. But as you just know, if you listen to the whole experience, this was, I think it had one sentence as to why he actually crossed over, and the rest was devoted entirely to what actually happened during the experience. So Paul says simply it was an accidental poisoning with no lasting side effects. And he talks about this conversation with a lady who is a psychologist and also has a support group for people with near-death experiences. And this is all before he actually starts describing what his experience was actually like. He says that this lady is a bit of an expert in near-death experiences, and she says to him that the one he has had, this experience I've just read, is what is described as a level 4, or the highest level, the most rare type of near-death experience. So I've never heard experiences being put into different levels before, but I guess there's lots of people researching this topic, and I guess there is going to be varying levels in terms of what you experience, how it affects you, the realness of the experience. I guess there's all different ways of categorizing how profound an experience is, but in this case, he says he sees this psychologist who says that the experience he has is the highest you can get. I guess if the levels are scaled in terms of recollection of the experience and the detail that they can go into, this is up there in terms of remembering exactly what happened. Because often people have these experiences, they say it's the most real thing they've ever gone through, yet for whatever reason, they're unable to recall significant parts of it, such as answers to some of life's bigger questions. But Paul has remembered a lot. He starts off by going into a lot of detail as to what the tunnel is like. So he definitely gets this experience of moving from one dimension to the next through a tunnel. Others will just flick between the two, but he describes in a fair bit of detail here what it was actually like moving from his physical body into this other realm. He says It was a little bit like taking off in a jet. My body knew it was moving, and the inside of me was being pushed or pulled, but the force wasn't unsettling. It was just he could feel his being moved. So he says it was like he's in this darkness. He's like in the black of night, and he can see faint lights or textures zooming by, or rather, he was zooming by them. So it's not like he's in a tunnel type structure. It seems like he's more just in his soul, spirit, consciousness form, and it's like he's moving through space, is how I'm imagining that. Then he says he gets to this point and he starts moving, like going left, a long, slow left, and the arc, it's just like a huge arc. So this part of the experience I've never really come across before. But yeah, he's basically describing that it's not like he's going in a straight line anymore. It's like he is turning left in not quickly, but just very slowly, which is it's interesting because you often hear in these experiences that there's no such thing as time or space or up or down or left or right in this other dimension. So for someone to describe going in a certain direction is a little bit counter to what I've come across before, but even so, it doesn't mean that this isn't a true recollection of what actually happened to Paul, because everyone has their own unique experience, and just because someone experiences something, it doesn't mean the next person won't experience something that is exactly the opposite to that. It's like this other dimension is full of these, I think dichotomy is the word, where you get two opposing realities or conflicting ideas that apparently function or can be experienced in the same realm. So one truth might run concurrently with someone else's truth, all in the same universe. And as I say that out loud, I kind of think, well, that's kind of what happens here on planet Earth, isn't it? Like, especially nowadays with alternate truths and people believing all different sorts of realities, and I guess in a way not exactly the same, but sort of similar to what is happening in this other dimension. There's some people who don't experience movement and time, whereas others can turn left, turn right, go up and down. It's, yeah, I guess it just all depends on the individual and the experience they're having, which goes back to what I was saying at the start and how difficult these are to properly research in terms that are valid within our current method of proving things through scientific research, because there's just too many variables. I guess that is the only constant, is the variables. So this movement, he even decides to go into a bit of detail here as to what it actually feels like as he's moving along. So we get it. He's going in this straight line and suddenly takes a long, slow left. And he describes this movement as very fluid and smooth. It's not jarring. There's no vibrations. It's like a constant speed. There's no wind rushing past him. But he also adds that he felt he wasn't in control. It's like, I guess my interpretation of that is like what he is experiencing is happening to him. He doesn't have power to change the events as they're unfolding, which is also a little bit different to what you hear in other experiences. Often people say, I just thought that I wanted to be there or do this, and then the next thing I know, that's what I was doing. Whereas in Paul's experience, he is seemingly, he's powerless in controlling his environment, or maybe it's just he doesn't really know he can use his own will to manipulate the outcome, and he's just happy to go along with the flow. I mean, in this case, there's nothing scary or fearful happening to him. It's a new experience, granted, but at the same time, there's nothing that seems to be concerning him at this point, or at least he hasn't mentioned that it is. He says that he feels that he's being taken somewhere by something else. There's no real concern here. Um, this journey he is on, which seems to be taking forever, which runs counter to a lot of these experiences that say that time is non-existent in this other dimension. Says it's taking a long time for him to get from A to B. He can feel like he feels as though he knows that he's traveling. He's going a long way here. And the analogy he uses is he feels as though he's being strapped to some kind of amusement park ride, and he's in a dark tunnel, and all he can do is watch things go by and unfold. And I guess we can all relate to that. We've all been on some sort of amusement park ride where you just sit there and you let someone else control the machine you're on, and you're just there for the ride. But in his case, in this situation, it's a little bit different in terms of him being in this other dimension. He has no clue to what's going on, and everything is just totally new. He's just moving, and now he says, just reading this next line. He starts to get a little bit panicky here because the pace of his ride, he says, starts to pick up. Starts to kind of think, okay, so where am I? Like, what is going on here exactly? And then he says his journey starts to slow down, and he gets to this state of being in a calm float. There's no sort of tunnel type experience. Everything slows down. And he says he feels like he's arrived at whatever this destination is. And in this destination, he says there's stillness, there's calmness, there's openness, there's freedom. He is in this vast outer space, and in the distance, he sees this great white light. And he senses this light is peace and power. And there's stars all around, so he's kind of in two dimensions at once here, it seems. He's in this physical realm in terms of being able to see all the planets and stars and suns around him, but he's also in this other realm because he can see this light, and doesn't really describe what this light looks like at this point, just the feeling he gets from it, which is peace and calmness. And then he says once he sees this light, he feels his spirit, and he describes his spirit as that part in his chest that can feel joy, excitement, or heartbreak. So it's interesting that is how he describes his soul, that place that feels the emotion. And he says that as he becomes aware of his spirit or his his soul, that awareness of him being that essence makes him suddenly get bigger and swell up, and he feels his kind of losing attachment to his physical body. He becomes more aware of what he is at his true essence, and he feels his power within him. He says this, and it's expanding constantly, and he's aware now that he's not in his body. He's able to float around. um, he feels very still, and as this is happening, he says he becomes aware of these other beings that are in this dimension too. So this is, from what I can decipher, a good description of what this man is going through as he transitions from the physical form into a more spiritual form. He, at the as this tunnel begins, he's not really concentrating too much on who he is or what's going on. He's just in a bit of shock as to him, his essence moving through a tunnel, and I guess that would be pretty shocking to happen to anyone, and you wouldn't really think about things like who am I until you get a little bit more accustomed to the new environment you're in. But as he starts to become a little bit more comfortable, he sees this light, and he then begins to, I guess, explore a little bit of what is actually going on, and the shock of the initial journey is worn off, and he's able to acclimatize a bit and have a better look at himself and who he truly is. So then Paul goes into a lot of detail here as to what these beings that met him like, the kind of way they stood. I won't go into that too much. He says that they are, to him, they don't they feel like women, although there's nothing really distinctively that makes these beings appear to be women. He just says they have a feminine quality, a gracefulness, and they're beautiful, and they're all different shapes and sizes, but there's, I don't know, 8 or 9 of them, and he doesn't get to, I don't know if he doesn't try to communicate with these beings. He doesn't mention any form of communication at all, which is another little bit different take on a near-death experience. Usually they will have some sort of telepathic communication, but in his case, he just seems in awe of what these beings look like, and is happy to just sit back and be swept up in the scene he's seeing, rather than try to talk to them or communicate or find out what exactly is going on. So these beings are then, this is where it gets a little bit confusing for me anyway, when I read it through the first time with you guys. So he says, beyond these beings was a great white light, which was very bright and didn't hurt his eyes. And then his inner being is filled with this joy, much deeper and broader than euphoria. So imagine the most euphoric time you've ever experienced on Earth. Can you think of it? So now multiply that in complexity and depth, and you get an idea of what this guy is going through. It's an incredibly profound experience. And then I guess a bit of a transition happens. He says he begins to realize he is an enormous producer of power. He says, from deep within him, there was an immeasurable amount of love and purity, a very source. He feels he is incredibly powerful now. He is a power of goodness, and it is expanding and flowing out. And the way he describes it is, he says, it's like I had flipped on a million spotlights pointing out in every direction from inside of me. So yeah, we all get an idea of what that's like. Yeah, he just feels he is this light being now, I guess, where before he was a little bit unsure, and as he becomes more and more confident in this new found form he has, he is feeling stronger and more confident in who he truly is. He says this power has this sense of warm liquid, of bright, pure light. It's calm and it's radiant, but extremely immense and intense energy. And yeah, he just says that this is the only truth. This state that he is in is the truth. Everything else is a lie. He actually writes that everything else is a lie. So everything foreign to this state is not the true essence of who you are, which makes us or me think that this place of earth where there is a lot of detachment and confusion or ignorance as to what we truly are, or just a lack of understanding. I mean, I read these experiences and listen to them all the time, and I'm still learning, and I still need reminding as to what truly we all are. And it's easy to overlook and brush off in this realm that we're in, because it is so dark and it is so challenging, and it is almost like these experiences I read and listen to on a regular basis are too good to be true. Like, how could I truly be a fragmentation of source energy that is capable of just about anything? It does seem a little bit fanciful at times, but for me, like, I lose faith every now and then. I think like just about everyone, but there is something to this. There is something to these experiences that give us a clue as to what we are truly like. And these experiences change people. They're incredibly powerful messages, and although I've never had an experience like this myself, I have had some mystical experiences, and them I am grateful for, but I've never had it proved to me in such a profound way like this. And I guess that's what pushes me to constantly research this topic, is to be reminded that this physical body is fantastic and amazing and capable of many things, but there is something within us all that is much more powerful and immeasurable and infinite and indestructible, that we get to experience once we no longer are in this body and have this body and this world as our primary focus. And once all that's gone, we can go and rediscover who exactly we are, and where we came from. But in the meantime, you and me can just keep reminding ourselves by analyzing and reliving these experiences that other people have had, and let them guide us to remember that we are powerful, loving beings at our core, and that is our essence, and that is what we return to. So Paul kind of says, look, this power, this love that's beaming out from him in every direction, it doesn't really describe what sort of form he's in. It just says, like, for me, I'm kind of thinking, okay, this guy's like this ball of light that's shining out in every direction, and is feeling powerful and good and full of love and free of any negativity. And he says it's like a trillion Hoover dams generating pure love and beaming it out from within me. The power that I was granted in this next life is unthinkable in human form. So there you go. He's just trying to describe here, I guess, the the power of this form that we all are at our essence. And when you compare it to our little mortal human bodies, there is no comparison. It's chalk and cheese. It's not only difficult to compare because we're in a physical realm and we're surrounded by physical objects, and this is how our mind works. It's difficult to understand what this essence is when you think that the way we operate in this world is through physical explanation of things, and it's just hard to understand because he is in this other realm, he's experiencing his light being, and it most people in these experiences will write, look, this is too hard for me to put into human words, but I commend Paul here for giving it a real crack at helping us understand what being this light being is actually like. And yeah, I am very grateful. I like this next paragraph too because I can relate to this a lot. He says, "For once in my life, I was plugged in, I belonged, it was right, it was where I was meant to be, it was perfect." So yeah, I feel very alien, I guess, in a lot of ways in this world. I don't know. I just don't feel like I connect properly. It just doesn't seem right for me being here. I just do not feel like I belong in a lot of ways. And to understand that this is probably a common thing amongst a lot of people, and once they leave this form and go back to where they come from, and that feeling goes away. And to think that we come from this place of connectedness, of oneness, of joy. It's no wonder if we come to a place like Earth and we experience what we experience that we're not going to feel like we truly belong here. I don't know. Is that the soul telling the human something, or is that just a human thing to feel a little bit um, foreign and disconnected in this place? It shouldn't be, because humans have evolved here for a long time and they should feel right at home in this environment. So why is it that so many of us do have that feeling of just not quite fitting in here, and feeling like something's off? Is that our soul energy telling us something, or is it just the human personality we have? Like, you obviously get some who do feel, or at least from my perspective, seem as though they are well adjusted to this place. And I'm talking about the more kind of extroverted personalities who are very confident in their own being, and they're able to make living life as a human look easy. But this is from my perspective, and you won't know even if you were observing the most confident person, whether what their experience is like inside. Like it could all be a show. They might hate themselves. You just can't say until you're actually in that person's skin. So who knows why we have this. Well, I have this feeling that I don't really belong, but it's reassuring to know that as you cross over, this feeling is goes away, and you do feel reconnected to your home, I guess, to where you came from. And Paul says he's completely overwhelmed by what is going on. He now starts to hear this most beautiful sound. It sounds like angels kind of singing a bit of a chorus, and this music is just permeating through everything. Everything is so nice, and his mind is just blown away. Interesting, he uses the word mind there. It kind of makes it a little bit confusing because for me, I'm kind of picturing all this happening in a being without a mind, in a being without a brain that has to comprehend what exactly is going on. And I'm just picturing this light being who is well aware of exactly what's going on. And for him to kind of throw that sentence in there and say, yeah, but my mind isn't really grasping exactly what is going on, kind of confuses me a little bit. But anyway, this is what he says. He says it's all so foreign. Um, it's a little bit strange because one earlier in the paragraph he says he feels complete acceptance. He feels like he belongs. He's all hooked in and connected, and then he ends the paragraph by saying it's all so foreign. So yeah, I don't know how to interpret that. It's another contradictory kind of part of this experience. So the next paragraph he says this next life was the greatest gift he had ever received, and he's just blown away because this spectacle was all about him. He thinks, wow, this show I'm witnessing must be for someone else, and it can't be for little old me. But as it goes on, he starts to accept that this experience was for him. And you get that feeling quite often from these experiences that people will go back home, and they'll be greeted by people, and sometimes there'll be a stadium full of people, and they'll be cheering them and saying welcome home, etc., etc., and they're just blown away that this is for them, and Paul is no exception. He can't believe that he is getting this greeting, and he is very inspired and feels very special by what's happening to him. And he feels inspired to he even says that what pops into his mind, if I ever go back to Earth, I'm going to change the whole planet. I'm going to go out there and explain to everyone what happened to me. I saw the afterlife. It's real, people. You don't have to worry about death. Life continues on. Everything's fine. And this is what's running through his mind as this experience is happening, that he just can't wait to go back to Earth and share this story. From this state of ecstasy and joy and wanting to share the love and experience with everyone, he says, as he comes back to Earth, that he feels he isn't really wanting to tell anyone. He goes a little bit off track here from off track is a harsh way to describe it, but for me, he starts describing, I guess, what our society is like in terms of, or he calls, I don't know, the elite, the evil slave masters, and they're controlling humans. And I guess if you depending on your perspective, that could be your reality. The politicians or those in power do have a lot of influence in terms of the laws and the rules and how we live our lives, and a lot of that does reinforce things like materialism and capitalism, and those are the ways to live your life, and they do detract a lot from any spiritual messaging, which is a shame, but that's the way it is. That's the way our society is constructed, and I was lost in that reality for a long time, thinking, you know, more money or external pleasures was the way to enjoy life and get you through life. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with external pleasures or money to make your experience more enjoyable, but in the end, it doesn't, for me, it didn't give me that gratification that I'm looking for, and I'm still looking for that more permanent state of pleasure in living my life, and I do see it. I see it like regularly, but it's never lasting. But these days, I don't really need money or something, a certain event or experience to happen for me to enjoy life. It just comes and it goes in the small things, and it's never lasting. But yeah, it's frustrating. This life is frustrating, and it seems that this pot of gold or eternal state of bliss is right there, right in front of us all. Well, not in front of us, inside us, but we just can't seem to tap into it in a permanent way, because the life we live, the humanness always seems to overtake it, and any joy we might get from life is always short-lived. But that's just from my very novice spiritual perspective. I'm sure there's some spiritual masters out there who are able to tap into this loving energy and live their lives predominantly ruled by it. And yeah, good luck to them. It's something we all get to experience eventually. So whatever's going on in your life is exactly what you are supposed to be experiencing. Is another general message we get from these experiences, that we kind of choose the societies we come into, the parents we have, the lives we lead, and if you're not that spiritual master, which only a handful of us are, then the life you're living is exactly the lessons you need to be experiencing and learning. So, just be yourselves. Okay, so this next part, this is where he goes into a little bit of detail of what the merging with the light or merging with the oneness is actually like. So he says he's floating along with these other beings, and they've got this knowledge of who Paul is, and it is floating along towards this bright light. And he feels that as he gets closer, he senses a transformation about to happen. He feels this powerful goodness coming from this light, and he feels like he's being saturated with love and transforming into this new being. As he gets closer, everything gets whiter, and he slowly feels as though he's getting to this threshold and beginning to actually merge with the light. And he feels when this is happening, he's becoming this even more complete being, just something extraordinarily powerful, and he just has this intuition that everything is even going to change dramatically again when this emergence with the light is complete. And as he's kind of halfway into this emergence, he says he suddenly realizes exactly what is happening. He kind of recognizes that if this transformation fully goes through, he fully merges with the light, he will cross this barrier and won't be able to come back to his human body. So he is one of the rare ones who actually decides that that he won't actually do this. But it's amazing that he has the willpower, or even the bravery, or the, I guess, even stupidity. Sorry, Paul, if you ever listen to this, to want to come back to Earth when he is experiencing this emergence. And I'll just go through a few more ways he describes this. He says, it's the most wonderful sensation, this purity, this warmth, this power, this love, this peace, this infinite knowing, this emergence into this entity is just beyond description. He realizes if he continues on that this will be him going to heaven, basically, or this heaven-like state, and he will become one with what we know of as God. And in this realm, he kind of gets a peek to the blissful state of what it's like, the just beyond words what it's like. But Paul says, no, look, this doesn't feel right. Look, this feels like something I will get to eventually, but I think I still have things to do in my earth life. And as he says that, he kind of becomes detached from this oneness and slips back into his body and wakes up. So there you go, Paul's experience with his light and his guides, and the miraculous nature of what heaven can be like, and Paul has gone into a lot of detail there, and it gives us another perspective on what crossing into this realm is like for some people. So for me, this experience is a classic reminder of what we actually are. That beauty, that essence, that power, that love is all inside of us, but for whatever reason, we forget that, and I guess that's part of the reason we're here, in a way, to forget that. But just remember, like, next time you get lost in the drama of Earth life, which, let's face it, we all are pretty absorbed in 99% of the time, well, I am anyway. It's hard to detach from that, and that's why I like these experiences so much, because they remove me from this connection I have to this body that I think is me, when in reality that isn't the case. So next time you're running around, or you go to work and you put that uniform on and you think, yeah, this is me, this is what I do, this is who I truly am. On one level, I guess you could say that's true, but the reality of the situation is that this physical life that we all experience is not the place we really think it is. It's a bit illusionary, a bit dreamlike, and the real reality is in another realm that we aren't fully emerged in. Like, some of these experiences will tell us that our higher self is always in this other dimension, and there's only part of us in this body, and we're always connected to the source. And others will say that we we're in this body, and while we're in this body, we have pretty much separateness from this other dimension that I talk about on a weekly basis. So just depending on the individual and their perspective, it could be either way. But at the end of the day, I guess it doesn't really matter, because once this physical form expires and we cross back over, we get to experience that truth again, and that reality, which is incredibly even more real than what we experience here. It doesn't seem possible, but this is what these experiences tell us. So yeah, don't just try to remember that. Try to, next time you challenge, next time you get absorbed in the drama of your human existence, and it hurts and you don't like the experience you're having, try to remember that this is not the be all and end all. There's more to your existence than this human plane we're playing in right now. Enjoy it if you can, but if it hurts, which it often does, try to get out of your mind and into that soul part of you, and separate yourself from those negative feelings you are feeling. However you do that, I don't know, you meditate, you listen to a spiritual podcast, whatever helps you remove yourself a little bit from the human drama. Okay, gonna leave it there. Thank you for listening, sending you more love and light and positive energy, and love. I look forward to talking to you all again next week. Goodbye.